You'll never believe what happened to me while I was painting this, and the awesome thing about it is I caught it on camera, so just watch. So let me explain what just happened here. It was super crazy. I painted this picture a few months ago, and there was a really big thunder and lightning storm going on at the time. And the lightning actually struck a tree just down the street from my house, and it caused the power to go out in my studio. So the lights went off, the power went off, my camera turned off, everything. It was crazy. Luckily, I had finished the painting before all of this happened, but I'm just taking a quick walk down the street so I can show you this tree. Of course, it's winter time right now, and this happened when it had leaves on it, so I'll show you some footage of both just so you can see, but super crazy. I mean, right after it happened, there was bark and debris chunks, tons of leaves and branches scattered clear across the road to the other side of the street. The scar on this tree literally starts from the very top of the tree and goes all the way to the ground. I'll show the footage again in slow motion really quick, but it was seriously one of the wildest things ever, and even crazier that I just happened to catch the power outage from the strike in my video recording. Closer to the end of this video, I'll share some behind the scenes footage and actually let you hear some of the background thunder that was going on during this. So stick around for that. Whoa! Anyway, just kind of some fun backstory with this piece here, but let's go ahead and move on to painting. So here I have a very quick and simple outline drawn with pencil on my watercolor paper just to serve as a bit of a guide for my placement and composition. But this piece is absolutely doable in more of a free-handed way if you'd rather not take the time to draw anything. These lines are a little bit hard to see though, so let me quickly just show you what I've got with a thin Sharpie marker so you can see it better and draw it for yourself if you'd like. I'll start with one main long thin stem line first, coming from the upper right hand corner of the page and curving down to the bottom center. Really, this is all you need for this stalk, but if you do want to, you can add a few small lines along the stalk just to mark some spots where you might like some flowers or flower buds to stem from. I'll draw another stem line off to the left of this one, but because I plan to have a flower sort of placed in the center area here, this is as far as I'm going to take this stem. I'll have another stem though, even farther left, and again, I may leave a little bit of an open space for a flower. You can follow through with these pencil lines if you'd rather, and if that's easier than leaving this open, but sometimes when you have to paint over pencil lines, then those pencil lines can be hard to get rid of later. So this is what I chose to do today. Let's add one more stem off to the far right side now. Maybe I'll even put a bud on this one. So I'm just going to leave the top open for now, but I might go ahead and draw in some leaves here and there on these stalks, or even add some grass lines down at the bottom. Again, this is all optional. These can be painted in freehanded as well. You can choose what level you're comfortable with. And actually, when I'm done with this painting, I will probably create a more detailed outline that includes the flowers and everything that I can put on my Etsy shop if you'd rather go that route too. Now, I don't have that created yet because I haven't painted it yet, so we'll see what I end up with in just a minute. And as a side note, I will leave a link to my Etsy shop along with links and information for any of the products you see me using today listed in the description of this video if you're interested. All right, now that we've got a bit of a guide on our paper, we can go ahead and pull out the rest of our supplies. We need watercolor paints, a paper towel, some clean water, and of course, some brushes. I will be using some of my Craftamo brushes today. These just barely got put back in stock last Thursday. Since I'm making this video in advance, I'm not sure where they sit and if they're still available, but I will leave a link for these in the description of this video as well if you'd like to check that out. Today, I will be using a number 10 round, the 1/4 inch angle brush, and the number 1 rigger. I'll go ahead and tape my paper down really quickly to help with some of the warping, and then we can get started. Now, the whole point of this piece is to be a little bit more loose and fun. I tend to be more of a tight painter. I like painting a little more realistic and with more detail, but every once in a while, it's good to stretch my abilities and try things that I'm not as comfortable with, including painting loose and landscape. So we'll see how this goes today. It may be a disaster. Okay, let's get some colors ready on our tray. Now you can choose any colors you'd like for this piece. Today I wanted to try some yellows and pinks. This is one of my favorite color combinations. For my yellow, I have some Gamboge, and for my pink, I will be using Quinacridone Rose, or if you have Alizarin Crimson, that would work great too, whatever you happen to have on hand. All right, I think it would be fun to add a splash of background color to this piece today. So I'll take a little bit of water and paint in the area that I like the background to be placed. Maybe I'll focus this more near the bottom area of the page, but not quite touching the bottom either. I'll sort of make the edges of this look a little bit fluffy, sort of like a cloud, rather than all rounded and straight like a circle shape. This is just going to make it more interesting. Now that I've got the water in place, I can start adding in the color. The trick here is to keep it really nice and light in value. We need to be able to paint over the top of it later, and we don't want it to detract from the main flower feature that will be painted with the exact same colors. So just a touch of color and then spread it out with some extra water if you need to help keep this nice and light. I've started with the pink color kind of on either end, and then I will add the yellow into more of the center area, and I'll let them sort of blend together where they touch. Again, I'm keeping this sort of fluffy looking around the edges. Okay, let's get crazy and try something here. I'm actually going to pull out the rigger brush really quick, and while this paint is still wet, I'll take maybe a tiny bit of this pink color and pull out a few thin lines of color spreading out to this left side. This is sort of going to create the effect of maybe some little grass lines or maybe some flowers in the distant background or something. In fact, let's take this even one step further and actually paint in some dots of color here, like some little flower buds or petals. I think this is going to add a really fun look. I do like how that turned out. Now we need to let that background color finish drying, but while we wait, let's get some green colors ready for the leaves. I think I'll try more of a bluish green today. So let's pull out a little bit of hooker's green and then add in just a touch of ultramarine blue in here. And maybe I will also pull out just some pure hooker's green too, just in case we need that as well. Let's switch over to the rigger brush again and add in a couple of fun little grass lines using some of this hooker's green right down near the base of the main stems. And I'm even going to go ahead and paint some abstract leaf blobs or circle shapes along here as well, sort of like we did with the pink just a few minutes ago. I like that. It's just sort of fun and whimsical looking. Now, the background paint still isn't quite dry yet, so while we wait to add in the rest of the stems, let's pull out the number 10 round and see if we can start painting in some of the flower petals. So just up above the background color along this tall penciled in stem on the right side of the page, I'll paint in a nice large pink petal. Now, I actually made a couple of little pencil lines for the general area that I thought this could be placed, so I'll just go with that. I'll start the brush stroke out with just the point of the brush, and then I'll push down and make it more thick towards the end of the petal. I'll probably need to do this 2 or 3 times to really fill out that petal shape. I'm wanting these to be sort of on the larger side. And then to create a bit of interest in these petals and the flowers, I'm not going to paint the ends of the petals perfectly straight and round. I'm going to have some uneven curves or bumps in here. If you want to, you can even come back in with a touch more paint and add that to the petal here and there to add a darker shadow look. This is just going to help the flower not look quite so flat. I think I'll focus the darker color mostly at the bottom or the center part of the flower. Keep in mind that these petals can look a little bit more loose. They don't have to be perfect in shape or size. Just have fun with it. I think 5 or 6 petals will probably fill this out good enough. All right, that's a good start. Let's add one of these flowers just under this first one, a little bit more off to the left side of the page now. The good news is that we're pretty much just going to be painting it in the same way as we just did. 5 to 6 nice, large, loose petal shapes, and I'll probably start to overlap the background area here just a little bit with this flower, but I do think the background is dry enough now so that it should be okay, but double check yours to make sure it's dry before overlapping the paint though, or your petals are going to just start bleeding into the background wash. I try to create and provide fun and helpful tutorials anywhere from beginner-friendly to more advanced, and from more realistic to more loose and freehand style painting, so that there's something for everyone. If you are enjoying my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming weekly tutorials. Okay, moving on, let's paint in another flower that's sort of right at the top of this penciled in flower stem that's just right above the flower we just painted. Only this time, maybe we'll paint it a little bit smaller with the petals closer together or even touching so that it looks like a flower that's just about to open. Then over here to the right side of the page, let's finish off this stalk with some bud-like shapes going up the rest of the way. Now you can think of them as sort of little heart shapes if that helps at all. I'll just paint them along either side of the stem wherever they look good until they move all the way to the top. I think while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and add this same little bud shape to the top of the stem that's in the bottom right-hand corner as well. And then I think that's going to sort of finish off the pink flowers on this page. All right, let me just freshen up my Gamboge yellow really quickly, and then we can add in a touch of this color next. So up here on the stem to the left, let's paint in some even more loose looking flowers. These are really not going to have much of a distinct petal shape to them at all, really, just some fluffy blobs of color. I'll just paint these down the stalk here until they reach down in between the larger pink flowers. Now I want some of the color to go in this space down here, but I do need to be careful not to mess up or overlap the pink color too much. And thinking about it now, I really probably should have painted the yellow color on here first, since it is more in the background and it's a lighter value, but I didn't, so we are just going to roll with it. Okay, that looks pretty good. With the formation of the shapes and the value of the color, I think it does look like it's pushed more into the background, so that turned out okay. Let's add some fun dots or splatters of color back by this yellow flower next. Now I'd like to have a variety of sizes of these splatter marks, so I'll paint some larger dots of yellow color first, just using the tip of my brush, and then in just a minute we'll add some more fine splatter marks. Before I make these smaller splatters, I'm going to take a scrap piece of paper and cover up most of my painting here, because sometimes these are hard to control where they go. But that is also a fun thing about them. You never quite know what you're going to end up with. So to create these, I'll load up my number 6 round brush with some of this yellow color and simply tap it against my number 10 round. These are really super fun to do, but be careful not to overdo it. In fact, while we're at it, let's add in a couple of other splatter colors as well. Maybe we'll take a touch of the hooker's green and add that near the painted stem branch that we have here at the bottom, as well as some pink splatters off to the left side. How fun is that? This is just a playful and relaxing piece, super fun. I think it's time to add in some stem lines for some of these flowers next. So instead of just moving straight to the green right off the bat, let's mix up a darker pink to use first. I'll just add a touch of ivory black to some of the pink color that's already on our tray to make more of a shadowy pink color. Then using the rigger brush, I'll paint a nice thin stem line in between these pink buds, as well as some of the lines that connect the buds to the stem. Let's get a little bit crazy and add in a couple of small dark buds near the top of this stem too. Nothing too hard, just some small circles of color. I think I'll use this darker pink to paint the start of this stem line for this smaller pink flower also.
Now let's paint the stem line for the loose yellow flowers. I also want this color to be slightly darker in value, so I'll take just a touch of this dark pink that we mixed up and add that into some of the Gamboge color on our tray. This makes it more of a golden orange color. We'll just have to play around with this part a little bit, but let's paint in some thin lines and connecting stem lines into some of these empty spaces to fill it in and tie all of these blobs together. This is what helps make it look more like a flower, even though it's fairly loose. All right, continuing on with the rigor and some of these thin stem lines, let's take a touch of Hooker's Green and paint in some thin grass and stem lines near the bottom of the page. I'm starting out with the pure Hooker's Green first, but I will transition to the darkened Hooker's Green in just a minute. Now I think I'll actually stop with these lines at this point for just a minute and paint in some of the leaf shapes next. Now I'm choosing to use the angle brush for this. It makes terrific leaf shapes and is really quick and easy to do once you've got the stroke down. I'll use the darker bluish green color for these. I'll load up the brush and then holding it so that the longer point is facing downward, I can use the thin edge to paint a stem line if I want to, and then I can turn the brush slightly so that the broad length of the bristles is moving along the page to make a thicker stroke. Then I'll turn the brush again to finish off the leaf with a fine point at the tip using the smaller back end of the brush. These leaves and this brush stroke can take a little bit of practice to get the hang of, so if you need to, feel free to pull out a scrap piece of paper that you can test this out on first. I did draw a lot of these leaf shapes where I thought they would look good in the composition, but I'm not following the lines exactly. The drawing is just a general guide. You can add to or change things up as you go if you want to. There's no hard, fast rule that says you have to paint this in a certain way. Okay, I think we are just about done here. Let's just finish up with some fine details. I'm going to switch back over to the rigger now, and then using some of the Hooker's Green, I'll paint in some small green accents near the base area of the pink flowers, as well as finish off any of the leftover stem lines or extra grass lines that I feel like I might need to add to finish this off and make it look good. So many people tell me my videos are calming and relaxing, which is great because that is what I'm going for. But there is a reason that I do voiceovers in my videos and block out background noise and add in my own music. The reason I'm telling you this is because I am going to turn on my background noise right now so you can hear the thunder that was going on while I was painting this. But warning, I have 4 kids at home, so we were listening to some music from Encanto together, and they were watching out the window and talking and screaming about the lightning, so now you get a glimpse as to what my painting sessions are really like. Whoa! And that, my friends, is it for today's fun, bright, loose floral piece. I'm so glad you joined me. I truly hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.